I'm
It
just
is
thinking out
yep.
loud right now because it's like literally everything I've done has been because other people kick ass.
But you have such a talent for bringing that into context and
Sure.
bringing it into a space that even further connects people,
Mm.
right? I mean, just the name of your podcast, Real Business Connections, right? It's always been your focus, to really bring the attention right into these little pockets of expertise,
Yeah.
um, and to deliver that value to everyone around you. Um, I'm curious how that started for you. Why did you decide to create a podcast that highlighted? I think initially it was local,
Mhm.
right? And now it's gone, you know, global. I imagine it's global. You have people
Totally.
from all over, and you have some big names coming on your podcast now. But why did you just start? Why did you decide to start focusing on bringing those experts in as the focus of your podcast?
So I feel like we should just start the chat. I'm happy to answer that question if you'd like.
Well, that's what I figured. We'll
Yeah.
just jump right in.
Oh, are we recording already?
I started recording from the beginning in case we capture anything
Oh,
juicy.
I had no clue. So want me to answer that question?
Sure.
It's a big question. What was the question?
The question is, how did you decide to start with that kind of focus for your podcast? Right? With real, I mean, the focus being focusing on other people.
Yeah, it's funny because I was kind of a dummy, and on LinkedIn, a friend request was called a connection request.
That's
And I
right.
had just gotten let go during the pandemic, and I felt disconnected. I felt lonely. I was unemployed. I was broke, and I wanted more connections because I thought just maybe, possibly, I could be an entrepreneur. So I started this business podcast at the same time I registered for an LLC. I didn't really even know that you didn't actually need an LLC to freelance or just get started. I was
Yeah.
just doing the best I could. Let's start a business podcast called Rochester for Rochester, New York, Rochester Business Connections, because I need some. Start an LLC because I'm a marketer. I had already worked in the agency world. I understood that 98% of what we did was already just on a laptop in front of me. So I, for once in my life, put my chips on me and went all in on the possibility that I could be an entrepreneur, kind of like an accidental entrepreneur, because a few weeks prior, I was working in corporate. I didn't know that a pandemic was going to happen. But I needed connections because how else do you have a business? Like they say your network is your net worth. Well, I'm a music guy. Like I've worked in the music industry. That shut down, non-essential. I want to get
Mhm.
into the the business B2B world, and I don't have a home there yet, so I want connections. But we can talk about this if you want. I went in very strategically, knowing that if I started a business podcast, I'd meet business owners might need marketing or know someone else who's a business owner who does. But what I got out of it was more than just conversations and LinkedIn connections. It was like a lot of
Yeah.
heart to heart connections and like true mentorship and true friendship. And you might go in tactically thinking, oh, this is someone who is theoretically possibly a lead, but that thought went away so quickly. I'm like, this
Hmm.
person's a friend, this person's a mentor. And my entire personal brand in the business world was built off just highlighting these amazing leaders. And I was the little guy in the room just learning, but the podcast gave me an opportunity to document the journey and build
Mm.
relationships that I never imagined I ever have. Like I went in just wanting LinkedIn connections, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's so interesting, so way back, as a guest on your podcast. I mean, you're just so great at putting the attention, you know, on your guest, right? And really just allowing them to show up in their kind of natural space. But to have that real connection with you on air live, developing a relationship, just like you were sitting down at a coffee shop, getting to know somebody, which is what your audience experiences when they sit there listening to your interviews with anyone, which is so very different than having these canned questions, right?
Sure.
Um, and so you ended up really building all of these relationships. Did it end up working out the way that, did it end up feeding for you directly into your, because then you had a general marketing firm. Um, and so, you needed connections, right? And you, I think, especially at the time, was a really novel approach to really building out your connections by saying, hey, I don't really know that many people. I want to get to know them, and bringing them into this space where the attention gets put on them, right? Um, and you start to really build your authority, um, especially in the podcasting space. What did the journey look like because of all of those connections that you made? And I just like, for people listening, you know, while Ben has been a solo entrepreneur, and I don't know if in your marketing. Now you have an agency that focuses on podcasting, and building that audience like you've built. Um, I don't know if you have other people who partner with you in that space, but the way that you have collaborated has been a really unique approach, I think, to growing your business and growing your connections around you. What has the journey looked like for you, um, as your podcast? Your podcast, for those listening, if you're not local and you don't know Ben, which you should, um, he has grown his podcast from something that was fairly local and fairly small to something that's grown massively. Ben has some big names, and you'll have to introduce them, but some big
Sure.
names on his podcast now, and has really developed a big business around that for himself, one that allows for him to have freedom in his life. But it has been built on those collaborations and those connections around him to be able to do that.
Mm.
What has that journey, how has that evolved for you? When did you recognize that this um, collaborative strategy was something that you really wanted to lean much more heavily into?
Yeah, so there's a lot of micro questions, and I'll try to tackle a lot of them here. First, sole proprietor, so I do work with freelancers, really an army of freelancers, but there's no one on payroll. So I am a sole proprietor,
Mhm.
but nothing that I give to a client, like everything's touched by lots of hands before it gets to them.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, you talk about the podcast. I mean, nowadays I can say I've had Chris Doe on of the Future. I've had Jordan Harbinger, Mark Schaefer of the Behavior Panel, like my favorite YouTube channel. They have over 1 billion views. I've had these great like superheroes. Once they were once business superheroes to me on the show, but it didn't happen overnight. It's
Yeah.
one day at a time, one conversation at a time, and whether it's a podcast or a product, you want to add the most amount of value and realistically create the best product and service you can humanly do with the tools in your toolbox at the time.
Hmm.
So you talked about like like for a coffee shop conversation, I'm actually not that good at coffee shop conversations because I'm not the best like small talker conversationalist. A podcast for me was the greatest medium imaginable
Mm.
because I was a student ready to learn, willing to ask silly, simple, stupid questions, follow up questions, and just take notes the whole time and be the student because every mentor wants a good mentee. And then if someone gave me feedback or an action step or something to go integrate, I would do it and follow up with them. So I was building relationships with these mentors just by being this podcaster, mentee like character. Um, in learning as I go. But then as you go, you ask for recommendations, or in my case, I would use the word nominations. Hey, is there anyone you'd like to nominate for the show? Hey, is there any other business owners you'd recommend I'd connect with? So my network would build organically, where I started with just Rochester, New York. Now Chris Doe's like top 5 in the creative industry, one of the biggest leaders
Yeah.
for designers and creatives. It's not like I went from Rochester to Chris Doe in a snap. It was building these small relationships, one conversation at a time as we go, but then creating the product that added as much value as possible. So your product, even in a podcast interview, just is the conversation, making
Right.
the guest feel comfortable, making sure that they look their best, sound their best. Then in post production, I don't want anybody to lose sleep into it, but you look at developing any product or service, you want it to be refined, high quality, good promo, good follow up. And I just did all of it. Like I'd send a
Hmm.
follow up email, send them a text, introduce them to other podcasters, share, tag them, create cartoon version of
Yeah.
them,
I
cartoon
was just going to bring
graphics.
that up. I
Like
mean,
I was
so
going
much
above
effort
and
and work.
beyond.
Yeah.
And when you go above and I'd rather compete. Now, granted, marketing and sales is so important. Leadership, communication, collaboration, so massively important. But I'd rather have the best product than be the best salesperson or marketer. And I have a
Mm-hmm.
marketing company, and the greatest marketing is people that want to talk about you.
Yeah.
So
And
my
you end up
goal was
having a
to
lot of people who love to talk about you because,
exactly.
well, and you never talk about yourself.
It's a goal. I mean, here's the thing. If I diagnose a problem and have a solution, I'm going to say, hey, I can help you bridge this gap. I think
Hmm.
if we did A, B, and C, I would recommend you do this. Like
Yeah.
being a doctor, well, funny example, very, very funny example. But let's say a world leader or a president thinks they might have a prostate issue going on. They're very uncomfortable. They want medical advice.
Hmm.
And they go to the doctor, and the doctor says, Mr. President, drop your pants. Does the president drop their pants? They do. Would they drop their pants in 99.999 other percent of the circumstances? No, probably
Hope
not.
not.
But they will. Our president might. But in in an ideal world, they've already predetermined you're the expert and they've came from help. So I get to serve as a position of expertise, diagnose a problem, take
Mhm.
the MRI, give them a solution. But doctors aren't just talking about how they're the greatest doctor of all time. Their work speaks for themselves. And that's
Mhm.
my long way of saying to just create work that speaks for yourself. Then it's
Yeah.
easy to market, it's easy to promote, make recommendations, but ideally, other people are doing the marketing for you. That's why collaboration is so important. You
Right.
build an army of ambassadors that are willing to support you and know what it looks like to work with you.
Yeah. And you're really, I mean, when I look back, I mean, this is years now, but the way that you really structured your business and how it just happened organically, but really developed this really big network of people who naturally want to promote your podcast because they're on it and the people that they know are on it. And it just really spreads from there. And then became this really amazing product that now those seeing you want to, have you advise them on how to create something like you've created. Um, because it really is very admirable. It's been really cool to watch, really cool to watch. And it's interesting because so I've been working through kind of trying to identify what I see are the roles of collaborative entrepreneurship. And I see several different ones here, but what I see as the predominant role that got you kind of started in this unique business model for you, and I don't know that you thought of it as a business model, right? For you, it was a strategy to make connections, right? To start building your network and to start being connected. but the role of this connector or this cheerleader, right? Whereas, it's the focus is promoting other people, is connecting and promoting other people. We tend to think of it as not necessarily a primary strategy, right? As a collaborative, but it really can be. This focus of, for you, it wasn't an external thing, right? Where you have, a connection who's launching and you help, promote their thing. It wasn't this external thing where you're promoting other people's things. You're bringing them to you, right? And making all of these connections outward from there, which I really thought was so brilliant. And you just did such a natural, amazing job at it, really kind of turning it on its head. So you built this really great network, and now, using that platform to be this optimizer, to be the guide, right? To really be able to play that part of helping other people in their businesses to be able to use podcasting as an amazing tool for their business.
Yeah, I have a funny example and it shows my age, but the social media nerds, my first ever platform was MySpace. It's my first ever social media platform.
Yeah.
And for whoever listening or watching, or you can answer this, do you remember who was your first friend on MySpace?
Probably my college. What year was MySpace?
So I'll dive
I
in
want to say
because
my college roommate.
you either remember or you don't, and it's not it's I'm just a MySpace nerd.
Okay.
You automatically had a friend MySpace Tom. There was a guy who co-founded the platform, Tom, and when you
Okay.
started a MySpace account, he was automatically your first friend.
Oh, so apparently I was not into MySpace very much.
Or you started your MySpace, started inviting people and didn't notice this, but he was automatically your first friend, so he had more friends than anybody. And everyone wants to learn how to win friends and influence
Yeah.
people. Well, I say if you want a seat at the table, you bring your own table.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to speak on the mic, you bring your own mic. If you want to be platformed, you start the platform. Did
Mm-hmm.
Tom have the most friends because he had the most charisma? No, he had the most friends because he started the thing. So you kind of touched on it. Like,
Yeah.
really, all I've done is start stuff. I'm not God's gift to the world. I'm not the best at one individual thing. I am pretty good at finding other people that are good at stuff, though. So this is way back in the day. We don't have to go into the whole inception story, but I had a music podcast starting in 2016 because I was a local music advocate and wanted to get into places for free. Then I started a business podcast because Music Ben was broke and unemployed, and I was transitioning to the business world. Then I started free networking events because I didn't like a lot of the virtual networking events. Thought a lot of networking felt icky. And
Mm-hmm.
that led to an inner circle mastermind where I do like none of the talking because it's peer to peer support. We have guests come in and do Ask Me Anythings.
Mm-hmm.
Some big names that again, were once like rock stars are coming and speaking for my mastermind. But it's simply because I saw something that wasn't done exactly the way I want it done. There's a lot of great podcasts, a lot of great masterminds, a lot of great networking events, but I wanted to bring something new to the table. So I brought my own table. I created my own Zoom event. I created my own community. And again, if you want to be platformed, sometimes you just have to be entrepreneurial and start the platform. And I want to add one caveat because it came to mind as I said it. You don't always have to be the fearless leader, but you can be number 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
You can be the person behind the scenes that's a 49% or a 50% stake partner, you 20, 25,
Yeah.
25 for 4 people. You don't have to be the fearless leader, but
No,
you
you
do
don't
have
have to be the voice on the
whatsoever.
podcast.
But you do have to start something unique and be involved with it. Tom actually had a co-founder. I don't know who the co-founder is, but he had a co-founder.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yep.
co-founder is probably doing just fine as well.
Yeah. I mean, just that point of it doesn't happen alone, right? Even if, you still, are the sole proprietor in your business, right? It's, there are these different roles that we play on our own businesses, and we rely on others around us to play theirs. And there are so many different ways to do that. And like you said, if it's you want an influence on a platform, right? It doesn't have to be as the central face of it. Um, and there are many roles that we can play, right? As entrepreneurs, just like, we can play, um, that the visionary, right? In our own business, we can play another collaborative role in somebody else's. Um, it's been, it's all a journey. It's all a really crazy journey. I mean, to just watch the evolution of your own, or just to look back, right? Um, yeah, I really appreciate your take on that. And just wanted to add one thing, that because you really made a focus of bringing in people to learn from them, having that intention, right, of connecting with people, putting the focus on them and learning from them. When you say this is somebody who you should know, or you should listen to, or connect with, they listen to you and they trust you, because your intention has always been, you're somebody that I think we could learn from, and that's why I brought you on, right? I respect what you're doing. I think that I can learn from you, and I think that my audience can learn from you. And so, as you started to really grow, that trust really built, because you're not on there as a selling platform. You created a platform to learn and to connect people, not just to yourself, but to each other. And so when you now say, I can't wait to share this with you, they're all on board, because they know that can be trusted. You're that doctor that says, drop your pants, right? And going back to that, analogy, but
Yeah.
because they trust you in that space, you've built something that has a lot of integrity, because that's the intention you came in with.
What's crazy, and I didn't touch on this yet, is when you're bringing in business owners, leaders, other people into your orbit, you're attracting, whether it's a podcast or an event, or you're doing a social media post about them, whatever it is, when you bring them into your orbit, you get a lot of shared credibility from them.
Mm-hmm.
You become more credible just for knowing them. And what's wild is over time, you develop deep levels of credibility, but none of it would be possible without them putting their chips on you, you
Right.
gaining shared credibility, showing them that it was worth their time to put their chips on you, and then your
Mm-hmm.
credibility grows. But credibility is something that takes forever for us to build, and it's very easy to burn to the ground. So I've just one
Yeah.
brick at a time have been building my empire. And when you fail, you place a brick. When you win, you place a brick. Doesn't matter if it's a win or a fail. I continue to build my empire with every step and every brick you place along the way.
I love that. And it's so true. It can burn down just like that, right?
Yeah.
If we're not intentional about how we show up in integrity, with ourselves, um, and how we want to grow. So
I
you've
just want
built,
to blurt out, like, people talk about like get rich quick, and there's always these really generic metrics of you need to make 10,000 a month, and the moment you get to 10,000, you need to make 100,000 a month.
yeah.
Like, it's I plan on living, God allowing, at least another 50 to 70 years. So do I really have to rush? I want to
Right.
enjoy my life. I want to one step at a time at as much value as possible while enjoying it. It's not a speed game, because sadly enough, what if I got rich quick and then it only lasts another 5 years? I'd rather just collaborate, have conversations like this, and grow where it's my I want a foundation impenetrable, because
Mm-hmm.
it is easy for it to burn to the ground if it's a house of cards, but if you build
Mm-hmm.
it properly, possibly it could become impenetrable. I don't know. I'm thinking about this out loud for the first
Yeah,
time.
I love that. I mean, it's just like relationships,
Mm,
right? You know, building trust and building connection and building real relationships takes time.
yeah.
And there's no tactic out there that can do that for you. And with collaboration and really building, like you said, kind of putting your chips on someone, right? Um, those bricks of that impenetrable foundation, right? It takes constant integrity. It takes a constant intention of showing up the way that you want to show up in these connections and these collaborations and these relationships. Um, I, you know, I know that you've already given, this big piece of advice, but if you were to, if there were one thing that came to mind, as I think we need to start shifting how we look at how we show up to entrepreneurship, right? And move past this idea that solopreneurship means doing it alone, right? And that if you're not finding success doing it alone, it's not because, you know, you're doing it wrong. It's because I don't believe we were ever really meant to be able to do this alone, right?
Mhm.
You have these amazing gifts and skills, and I have these amazing gifts and skills, and we each have, right, these personalities and things that we do really well. And there's the other stuff, and there's so much that it takes to actually run and build a business brick by brick, and to create the impact and the freedom and um, the sustainability that we want to build.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for those starting out or taking a look at their business now and thinking, I really want to do this differently? Um, is there anything that comes to mind that you would offer them?
Yeah, I laughed a moment ago. I don't know if you noticed that, but I realized that I'm just like full of metaphors today, and I thought of another
I love the
metaphor.
metaphors.
Um, and I say it all the time because it's as true as it gets that there is no key to success. It's a combination lock, similar to the pin on your phone or a padlock at the gym. Or you're at an Airbnb and you get a special combination to get in the door. Each and every one of us has a unique combination.
Hmm.
So this can happen in moments if we have a little bit of clarity and want to journal, but it also might take years to truly unlock. But who are the mentors in your world? Who are the peers in your world? Or the collaborators? Who are the mentees? I simplify it plus minus equals. Plus is a mentor, someone who's putting their chips on you. You're their
Hmm.
mentee. Minus is a mentee, someone that you're teaching. They could be a client, an audience member. Equals are your collaborators, your peer-to-peer support. In some cases, you never actually spend money on each other, but you're ambassadors for what each other do. So we have to understand who our pluses are, who our minuses are, who our equals are. Then we also want to have clarity on what are our skill sets. Like what are we just intrinsically good at because we've been through so much that we're, whether we know it or not, we're just good at this thing. But then there's
Hmm.
also skill sets that we can develop. And then another category is what do we value? Because if we value faith, it's going to look a little bit different than if we value fitness. It actually
Hmm.
could be the exact same business, just different messaging. But who are our pluses, minus equals, our mentors, our audience, and our peers? What do we value? What are our skills? Then you look at what does the world need, and you
Hmm.
start to develop a combination that once you get clarity on that, you know what platform you want to start. You know what business you want to begin, what social media account, like what you want to release, what to post on YouTube. It becomes way easier to tell why stories if you understand who you value, what you value, and
Yep.
who it's for. So yeah, I'm complicating it, but the simple version is there is no key to success. It's a combination lock, and
Yeah.
if we can do the inner journey of figuring that out and what people we want in our world along the way, that's when you start key to success. That's when you start unlocking stuff. It's
Yeah.
with your combination, not someone else's.
Oh, I love that. It's just such a parallel, analogy, that key, right? With I think how we've been trying to talk about it in the labs and the incubator is that, we often, and this is the collaborative analogy, right? That, we often think of entrepreneurship as having to find and build the whole puzzle ourselves, right? Where the reality is we're one puzzle piece, right? And to understand how to really connect into the right puzzle, right? And to connect in with the other right puzzle pieces, we need to be clear on the shape of our puzzle piece. We need to know who we are, what we stand for, what we value, who we want to work with, right? What drives us forward? What are our skills and our gifts? Exactly what you're talking about to fit in to other puzzle pieces, to understand, how we can connect in together to really build what we envision in the future, or how we want to contribute, depending on the roles that we play. But yeah, I love that key. Like, you've got to unlock yourself before you can, I think, really find your place out there in entrepreneurship. And I heard that analogy before, but like, not analogy, but that entrepreneurship is like the, most intense personal development journey like you could
Sure.
go on, right?
100%. And you touched on it. You can't do it alone. We'll just throw in one more analogy. Um, People like to say that I picked myself up from my bootstraps.
Mm.
And I'm like, did you make the boots? Are you like a professional boot maker? Okay, so you didn't make the boots, you didn't make the bootstraps. So someone must have helped by manufacturing and supply chain shipping the boots to your door, or at the retail location you showed up.
Yeah.
Nothing happens alone. We
Nothing.
can have grit, we can have grind, we can have resilience, we can have vision, but it's all those little pieces around us that makes that I have boots on my feet and
Right.
sunglasses when it's sunny.
Yeah.
We don't do anything as a society. Everything is collective. It's
Yeah.
all
And I
collective
think
impact.
it's getting past just accepting that and to embracing
Embrace
it,
it.
to really embracing, looking for other people to co-create with, as opposed to struggling through and doing it yourself, even if you're acknowledging that you don't get there alone, right? Is to actually to really fully embrace, like, I'm amazing at this, right? But I don't want to be on the mic, right? I really want to support somebody else doing that. I want to be the guy, behind the scenes, helping Ben do that, right? And it doesn't have to be Ben paying me to do that. We can partner. And there are a lot of ways that can happen. And I think the creativity piece is just a really big part of it. Like, having the creativity to know, right, that we could make this happen together, right? As opposed to, I've got to, be good enough at this for long enough to be able to hire somebody to help me so that I can just do the stuff I love and not have to do this, be on the, sales funnel creation side. Yeah.
I know I still struggle with that. So with all I've done and all the freelancers I've hired and all the episodes, I'm still like Mr. Final Approval.
Mm-hmm.
And this is no matter where you are, and it's why personal growth, entrepreneurship being such a great self-development, personal growth journey.
Yeah.
No matter where you are, there's going to be new mountains. And I'm Mr. Final Approval. And 99 times out of 100, if someone sends something to me, it's either good or I find something that can make it a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
I usually have big enough vision and I understand the full marketing landscape that I can optimize things just a little bit better. However, does it have to be perfect? Probably not. And is there someone who's just as good at that as I am that can take some of it over for me?
Right.
Probably. But part of why my business, and I'm not mad about it, but it's not as big as it maybe could be,
Mm-hmm.
is because I'm still micromanaging a little more than I could
Yeah.
probably pass that off a little
I
bit.
think doing it alone limits the vision, the size of the vision we end up having for ourselves, right?
Yeah.
That potential, which, and for some people, I don't want to minimize, the fact that solo entrepreneurship is okay for some people, that works
Yeah.
great for some people. But I think for the majority of people, it's really self-limiting. And so that was my final question for you. What what do you see in the future for yourself? I mean, you've built your empire of bricks on collaboration, right? Ben style.
Yeah.
I know that you really value um, the experiences that you get to have in life, right? And that really experiencing everything and not having that business take over your life is really important to you. What do you see as kind of the next phase for your business, given, that investment that you've had in building all of those collaborations and connections?
So I will say you set me up perfectly for this one because
Awesome.
as of this year we launched We All Grow Together. We All Grow
Hmm.
Together.
Yep.
And if this conversation hits home, or just the words We All Grow Together hits home,
Hmm.
that's reason just to type in weallgrowtogether.com. That's the free greater community for grow getters only. Grow
Which I'm
getter.
in and I love. I've got to get more involved in it. I have to keep reminding myself to get in there.
Well, thank you. Go getters with a growth mindset. There is an inner circle mastermind, but it's what is it? 3 live free virtual events completely for free, discussion forum. And that's the future because there's the podcast, there's the marketing, there's the
Yeah.
mastermind. Everything is now housed under We All Grow Together. So if I launch a course, or maybe you want it as an example, you or a listener wants to launch a course within the greater community,
Hmm.
my goal is there to be a ton of courseware, a ton of events, ton of podcasts, all housed under We All Grow Together.
Hmm.
But what's going to happen is we're all going to grow together. So it's not all just about Ben, it's about the collective impact and the peer to peer support. And we just launched, there's like 150 members. So anyone who joins now-ish, or even 5 years from now, I guess who knows when they
Hmm.
first saw this, they get to be one of the first people, which is kind of cool.
I love that.
Yeah.
Exciting. So we'll make sure to share that link. Weallgrowtogether.com, right?
Yeah. Easy peasy.
Um, yeah, along with your podcast link and any other links that Ben wants to make sure that I share with you. But I so appreciate you sitting down with me, Ben. I love being on this side of the
Mm.
mic with you and interviewing you. Um, and for being a model of collaborative entrepreneurship in the amazing way that you have. So I really appreciate that and your expertise.
I
Thank you.
appreciate you thought of me. This was fun.
Good.
I want to meet some of the people now.
Yeah. Hey, the incubators is really designed to be really accessible because we really want to build that community. And it's going to be all about experimenting together with collaborative entrepreneurship and creating community around that. But like really tangible, dating, right? It's dating collaborative entrepreneurship because it's something that's I think we all have a deep desire to do to really collaborate and build together, but I also think we suck at it.
Mm.
Like we're really not very good at it. Relationships are hard. And so, having the creativity, having an understanding of who to connect with and how to talk about it and how to set expectations and explore, I think is all brand new territory for the most part, for most of us. And so this incubator is really a place to get into a sandbox and really play and date the idea of collaborative entrepreneurship and date each other and really kind of feel it out. So I'm really excited about it too.
I like sandboxes. Sounds
Sandbox.
fun.
Well, thank you again. I so appreciate this, and I'm excited to see what happens in the Grow Getters community.